Hey everybody, Jim here, and today I'm going to be creating a new Saplicity tool to load purchase order texts. And what you'll notice about the purchase order texts tab on your material master is that it's very similar to the sales texts view. And you'll notice that there are a lot of the same objects on the screen, but this is a completely different object. Here we're looking at the purchase order text tab, which has in it a handful of objects, but they're very similar to the sales texts tab's objects. So let's go through what we're going to need to do in order to create this new tool. First, we have to copy the source data sheet to a new workbook. Let's start with that. I'm just going to recycle the code and the spreadsheet from this sales text load XLSM, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. First, let's copy this, and we're going to copy this to a new book, just like that. All right. And so now we have a new XLSM. This is actually a spreadsheet, so we have to save it as an XLSM in a moment. But let's see what's next on the list. Copy the language sheet to the new workbook. All right. I'm going to Alt-Tab back to the sales text load XLSM, copy, and I'm going to copy this to this book. Now, in the first video, I talked about this languages tab, and you'll see here there's an ISO code. And this ISO code and this text version of this friendly language version in English comes from the T002 table in SAP. And what I've done is I've copied that and put it here because later on it's going to convert this ISO code to a friendly text, which can then be used to find buttons on the SAP GUI interface in the texts load view. All right, let's close the sales text view. We're done with that. And before we save this, let's uncouple. Let's clear this out. We don't need this. Let's see. We're going to go into developer. We're not. All right. We're going to change the name of this tab. Yeah, just to make this simple. All right, and we're going to go into design mode, right click on the button. I'm going to assign a macro. Now, right now, it's still trying to launch some code in this sales text load XLSM spreadsheet. We want it to use this one. There we go. And this one, we don't want it to call the sales text load XLSM. We want it to call the upload function that's in the VBA of this spreadsheet. All right, I think now we can save this. And we're not going to save it as an XLSS. We're going to, we're not going to save it as an XLSX. We're going to save it as an XLSM, just like that. Great. All right. Let's figure out the next step. All right, we uncoupled the buttons from the old workbook, and we're going to update the source data header fields in the new workbook. Okay, good. All right, most of these are pretty good. We need the Matner. We need a Verx. We don't really need a Verx because the purchase order texts are not linked to the plant, but are instead cross-plant. So putting a plant here would be moot. I'm just going to leave it blank. And we don't need this column anymore. but you'll notice now that Spross, instead of column E, is now column D, and the texts, instead of being column F, are now column E. Great. All right, next steps. Update to handle plants instead of sales areas. All right. Let's do this one first. We're going to, yeah, because this comes first. We're going to have the software look for the purchase order text instead of the sales text view. Let's go into Visual Basic, and you'll remember download and upload from before. And we're going to scroll down to where it pulls open the sales text view. There we go. And this has to be case sensitive. So you have an uppercase P, uppercase O, and uppercase T on the objects in the select views, but in the views themselves, in the tabs, when you're looking at the Material Master, the O and T are not uppercase. Just something to watch out for. All right, so it's going to select purchase order text, and here's where it goes through and ticks the views that we want to actually view. Pushes the button. Here, if the status bar in Windows 0 has a message type of S, what that's telling us is that none of the buttons were selected. For example, this one doesn't have a purchasing view, so there's no purchase order text, and none of the tabs were selected. So we're just, in that case, I'm going to say not to view. Now, I don't think that's really the case. I think you can, even if it doesn't have a purchasing view, it can still have purchase order text. So I'm going to make this message no purchase order text view. I'm guessing some material masters material types can't be purchased, and so in the customization there's going to be no purchase order text view. And we're going to leave this code in here just in case. Yep, and it comes down here. Okay, so instead of sales area, we're going to pick a plant, which again is moot because it doesn't matter. Column C is Vex, so let's say, start here. Vex, we don't need a distribution channel. Yep, and this is moot, we don't need these. And here I happen to know that the field for the plant is called RMMG1 Vex. There we go. We don't need that. All right. And it's going to press the button 0 on window 1. Great. Okay, so if there are 3 pop-ups after you press this button, copy text from the pop-up dialog for user review. Okay, so if there's a 3rd button, that means an error message has occurred, and we're going to pass the pop-up dialog text to the column A for that record to let the user know what's happened. Then we're going to close window 2 and then close window 1, which is where it's asking for org levels, like plant. Great. And then exit function will return a false and cause these two fields to be turned red. So you have your error message here, and these turn red. But if it's actually okay, then it will return the true. And let me change this. Start changing these function names. I'm going to copy this, come up here, Control H, Control V, and pull up Material Master, Purchase Order Text View. Yep. And I think there's another one I need to change. Yep. Just like that. Great. Okay, so recycling the code is actually really, really easy. All right, what's next? All right, sales areas. Yep. Purchase, update VBA to handle purchase order text tab instead of sales text tab. Yeah, okay, so we've done these two, but when we get to here, we're going to have to also change how the VBA code pulls the data from the spreadsheet, because columns E and F are now columns D and E. So we'll have to watch out for that. We're just going to do that now. Okay, so we're going to say we're going to blank this value if it's a read command. We're going to pick the language, and that's going to come from column D here instead of column E where it was before. All right, here it's going through this languages worksheet. So that's going to remain column D. That's not changing in this other worksheet here. That ISO code stays in column D. Yep, that's fine. All right, if it doesn't find the ISO code, it populates column A with this value, returns a false, string F. Okay, so this is going to be column E, and in current, that's going to be where the purchase order text is stored. Okay, if it's set, here's where we're going to run into some trouble. First, we're going to run into trouble here because it has to select the language, and it's expecting the sales text tab to be open, but it's not going to be open. And then here, we're going to run into a problem again because here, the sales text tab, or SP10, is open, but we're going to want SP14, I think, or SP13. We'll see when we cross that bridge. Well, great. Let me launch SAP, start the debugger here when it gets to this point, and then I will put the material master off to the side here, just like in the last video, and have the debugger and VBA code on this side. Let's get that going. Well, before I do that, and now that I'm thinking about it, let me add some test data. We're going to go with, we're going to leave that blank, English, and some test data right there. Great. Okay, now we can try it. All right. So let's F8 into this function where I'm passing in the word English. Remember, the ISO code was EN, and the code up here converts that to English. All right. F8, F8, F8. Okay, so now it's trying to, let me see if I can get down to this debugger. Right there. In session, find by. Okay, so we know that it's Windows 0, then user. This is the user area here. And there is a tab GUI object called tabs PR1, and then a tab SP10, which is the sales text tab, but we're looking for the purchasing tab. Let's see, purchase order view tab. Let's see if we can find that. That's okay. We're going to look into the children of the session. There is item 1, which is the window 0. And we're going to look in there for item 5, which is user. There it is. And then we're going to look in here under the user for the item that contains this tab view. Shell 0, that might be a dead end. This has one child, some shell contents, and it has no children. Okay, so this is a dead end. Item 2, underneath the user area, is, oh, there it is, tab SPR1. Great. Okay. Windows 0. Wait, got away from me there. There it is, tab SPR1. Great. Under that, there are 27 tabs, and if I'm not mistaken, number 14 is MRP1. Sorry, it is item 13. SP13 is the purchase order text, and it's always SP13 for purchase order text. These are linked. So we're going to look here for, looks like another tab. Oh, there it is. SAP scroll bar target. Let's see, this is of type GUI scroll container. All right. And it's called, right, I don't care about that. That's pretty important. That's pretty important. Okay. This is called SAP LMGMM20 and 2010. Okay, so this one's the same as with the sales text. All right, so that's good news. Let's look in the children. There are 2 items here. And we're looking for something probably called sub 2. Oh, I just can't scroll over anymore. All right. Sub 1. I wish I could see more of this. Nope. All right, we'll scroll over a hair. This is sub 2010 is the one before. Sub 1, MLDG1N 1002. All right, let's look at the other one. Item 2 is called something else. Sub 2, SP. Yep, okay. So what we're really looking for is this button. So we want this button and this language. And we're going to find it this way. Sorry if this is getting dry and boring, but a lot of this work is dry and boring. Let's look at the children under here. There's a lot of children. Let's see. This is auto text 001, purchase order text. So we're looking at that right there. Item 2 is language. That's probably here. Item 3 is language of displayed text. Long text, maintain text. What is this called? No. That might be this open editable area. Item 4 is looks like a button. Let's create. There's the tooltip. Item 5 is another button, delete text. Yep. Item 6 is editor, so you can go into a WordPad or whatever it uses for editor. We're not going to do that. There's another GUI button, previous page, and the next one is next page. Item 9 is no selection. All right, I'm not familiar with that. Oh, maybe that's this over here. Item 10, best tell. Yeah. All right, we'll come back to that. All right, so I think we were on the right path here. Children. Item 1, 2, 3, and 4. This says material. Oh, maybe that's this up here. That's material number. All right, it's got that. Short text. We don't need that. And we don't need that. Okay, so this first GUI container, item 1, is this spot right up here. And the second GUI container is this purchase order text. And somewhere in that purchase order text GUI container is this GUI container with some buttons. Let's work to find that. All right, so just to verify, item 2 is called GUI simple container. And it's got children. Item 1 is purchase order text. So there's that. There's that little bar at the top. Displayed text is language. That's that little bit there, I think. We're looking for a GUI container that has more children under it. All right, this is that word English with a bunch of spaces. And you'll notice that when you look above here, it looks like it's centered, but it's not. It just has a bunch of spaces in front of it. There's a button, another button. What was this last one? Long text, BESTEL. Item 1. This is a GUI container shell. And under there is an item. This is another shell. Yep, GUI shell of type GUI shell, text edit. All right, we're getting close, I think. What was that? Was that it? Item 1, children. That has one item. Children. And no, that's a dead end. That's just a GUI label. That's that. That's 4 through 9 are buttons. What's under here? Is it 2 buttons? B color. Select language. Okay, I think we found it. English. All right, here it is. Okay, so sorry this took so long, everybody. Item 9 in here is the container that has these 2 objects. Now it looks like 1 object, but it's really 2. There's a button and the word English. And what we know is that they're stored in first in they store the buttons all the way down, and then they store all the languages. So what I did in the past was step through the buttons. So if it's I'm going to go through each child in this area, and if it's a button, I'm going to add 1. I'm going to increment the buttons counter, and then there's a string buttons array, and the string button with this button number is going to get the object child ID. So else it's a description, and I'm going to increment the descriptions, and if the text equals the string friendly text, then I know that the number here stored in descriptions is equal to the button that needs to be pressed for that language. Okay, here we go. Select language equals true, and then I exit function. So I'm actually going to press this button with this fields in it, with this ID, once I get there. But first, I have to put the correct string here. And we found that. Oh, darn it. It scrolled all the way to the bottom again. Thanks. It scrolled all the way to the bottom. So here's where the button and the English language are stored. And the name of this is appcon says win0 blah blah blah. So I'm going to watch this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to Alt Tab into my text editor, just like that. And I'm going to copy all the way to here, and then replace this. Okay, so now it's going to step through the children of this object on the Purchase Order Text tab instead of the Sales Text tab. Great. Okay, thanks. And then what? Now we have to go through and do the same thing to make sure that it clicks this button instead of trying to click this button on the sales text view. Okay, if not, is language selected? And this is kind of moot because it exits the function if it is selected, but let's stick with it. We'll leave it in there. And session is changeable. Okay, so if this button is not grayed out, if you're in MMO2 instead of MMO3, then it proceeds. Okay, good. Let's find the container. Let's find this new button, new language button, button EAN. And we were looking at it before. Let's see if it scrolls all the way to the bottom again. It does. The new button, I think, was here. No, that's a GUI box. English. Be create, is that right? Create text. All right, so the name of the button is slightly different on this screen. So let's give this a try. All right, let's do this. So we're going to copy this. Select language. Yep. That's just the context. I don't care about that. EAN. We're going to start here. Great. And again, sorry for running this demo in 720p. There are a non-negligible number of SAP professionals out there that are using their laptops that do not have 1080p screens. All right, so I pasted that in. Oh, well. Oh, it is the same. Great. Or it's very, very similar. Button TEAN. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to come here and do the same thing with this. There you go. SP13. And in this container, it finds this button and it presses it. Okay. And now window 1 shouldn't change very much. But what we'll do is we'll put in another language like French and then get this to pop open and step through that. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go F8. Yep, thank you. If it's a GUI button, then add one. It may just do this all the way through. I'm sorry, everybody. F8. Let me remove this and see if that helps. It does help. Great. Okay. So so it's gone through all the GUI buttons. GUI button has 1, and the value there is that ID of that button. Now, descriptions equals description plus 1, because we know we're looking at the descriptions now. Let's see. Okay, now if this text equals English, which it does, great. It's going to step through here, and it's going to push the button with this value in it. Great. Okay. It's going to set the select language to true. That's the return value of this function. Wow, this is getting really long and boring, but I'll try to wrap this up quickly. And it's going to exit this function. Pure virtual function call. Huh. Well, let's try this again. And SAP closed altogether. That's all right. I'll just run this again. Let's save this though. Control S. Okay. All right, it's launching the SAP GUI. Oh, I'm still in debugger. All right, let's start over.
A few moments later.
Okay, so we're back about where we started, where we left off. Let's figure this out. Let's F8 into here. All right, it's already got the friendly language of English passed in. Great. And we're going to step through the GUI buttons, adding one. The button 1 has this ID, all right? And there's one description. Yep, 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 exit function. Yes, we're going to exit the function because we don't want to try to look at any more of the objects here. Once you've clicked this, it starts acting a little weird. So let's see if this still has any information in it. Yeah, see, once you click this button, the value, this object, loses all of its attributes in VBA. So we're just going to exit this function. Great. And we've come back to here. Let's, yep, E17. Why is that E17? What an odd... Oh, I see, because we were, before we were looking at this language in the language tab, but here we're on the second row in the source data tab of the spreadsheet. 8, string action is set. So now we need to find this long text object right here. It's cool. All right. I'm going to take a little shortcut like this. Go into my notepad, type that. SP13. Yep. Copy that. I don't need to see this. Delete that. Delete that. Add watch. Great. And it passes back this object with this tab. And in there, we need to find this object. And we know it's not, its ID is not this. So let's poke around and see if we can get this. Children, item 1. Item 1 is a GUI scroll container. We don't need that. But it's got to be in here somewhere. And item 2, I think it was where we saw that. Hopefully it's one of these. Long text. So we know it's something like this. SS tab fra 2010. 2010 sub 2. I think we're real close. That could be it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. So item 10 is this box, but under there is another item that is a GUI custom control. And it took me a while to figure this out. And under that, under this GUI custom control is another child. Well, there's a shell container, and under that is a GUI shell called text edit. And that's the value of the text of that is what we want to change. The text is now currently blank, or a space. So we want to take this and let's look at this real quick. Yeah, see, shell container shell, and this is a shell container shell. So let's go back all the way to here. And paste that in. And in the event it's a get option, the range value on column A is going to be set to whatever is in this shell. So we paste that in there. Boy, see how very similar it is? It's It's very, very similar. Okay. And I've got some remarks. If it's set. Okay. So if it's a set request, it's going to loop through the children in the toolbar up here and wait until it finds, let's see, save, like that. And then click the save button. And then exit 4. Let's make sure that we're not missing anything. Great. Oh, I think the range, do we say the text is column E in the spreadsheet? Yeah, great. Test data, great. Okay, let's step through this and see if it works. And there, it's put in the test data value. And we're going to keep, oops. Oh, I hit F8 over here. Okay, so I hit the back. So apparently, if you hit F8 in here, it goes to additional data. Is that right? Do I get a tooltip? Control F6. I don't know why it went to additional data. So back in the debugger, I'm going to hit F8 again. We're going to step past that. Put a breakpoint there. I don't want to rest. Let's see. That's wait for 1/10 of a second. I don't need to. F8. F string action is set. It's going to go through these. There. It saved it. And it talks about the material 12910501 is changed. So here we're going to exit the 4, 8. I think, let's see, I'm going to skip down to here. There, it waited for half a second unnecessarily. I don't know why I put these in there to make it easier to watch. Let's see, F8. So there's no extra, there's no extra window. There's no window 1. We're just still here in Windows 0. And if there is, then it's going to capture the text from window 1 and pass that back to the user in column A. But here, we're going to set the range to column A. So now it's A2, and the value in A2 is going to be set to the status bar text, which is this. Now, if it wasn't, let's see, if something else had gone wrong, it would, if it were not a set, it would be a get, and it would be sales text downloaded. Great. 8, 8. Okay, and it's going to return a true from this function, set purchase order text. F8. And now it's going to turn these green. F8, F8. All right, I'm going to hit F5. And it's going to go through the last million records in the spreadsheet and let me know the run is completed. Great. All right, so now let's do some experimentation, and we will do, let's do French, FR, to make sure that works. To make sure that the adding a new language works out okay. All right, yep. Forgive me for skipping ahead to having the view set up like this. I don't want to spend a lot of time blurring out client information. So now, let's see. We've got string friendly language. Let's go into here because we want French. F8. Oh, sorry, I did it again. I hit F8 over in this window. Let's go to the debugger and hit F8. F8. Yep, it's French. And we're going to go through the objects in this container right here, and we're not going to find French. Is language selected is false. And let's look and see. what this, yeah, okay, so here, this button that we figured out from before is this new button here, create text. So we're going to press that, F8. Oh, sorry, we're just checking to see if it's selectable, or in this case, not grayed out. Now we're going to press it, F8. It's going to throw up this window 1, and now we can look in here. Now let's take a shortcut to window 1. Great. And we'll make sure that there is a user CMB desk Lango new. So children. All right, item 2 is the user area. Okay, so it's not always number 5 in the number of children in a window. So in the user area, we're looking for CMB Desku Lango new. That's a GUI label. That's something called auto text. That must be create text in. That's that label right there. Number 2 is CMB Desku Langu new. Okay, so now we're going to loop through the available options here and set the one that is equal to French. Yep, so if the value, if you look here in entries underneath here, you'll notice that there are 46. Gosh, are there really 46 languages? And you have a key, a position, and a value. All right, so let's step through this. I'm going to go put a breakpoint right here. Yep. All right. Okay, so key. Oh, I see what's happened. Okay, so string friendly language is French. I want to go here. And because we're stepping through the children in this drop-down menu, we can look at that object child and see that the key is F, the position is 16, and the value is French. So the drop-down menu has a key value, and I'm going to set that key value to the key value of this object child, which is F. So F8 here. There, it switched to French, and I'm not going to wait. All right. Now, in this one, it does have a taskbar, but you can't see the taskbar, and that taskbar has a button 0, which is enter, just like in all the others. I suppose I could put some effort into finding this button, but I'm not going to waste any time on that. Let's go F8, and it went back. So now French is selected. It's now a language. It's been added, and anything you type here will go into the French language. It's going to set the function return value to true, and then exit the function. Great. Yep, and it's set. So it's going to set the value here. There it is, test data. And I think I'm just going to F5 past the rest of this. And it's going through the last million records in the spreadsheet and lets me know that now the purchase order text for French has been set. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining me on this. You now know what this languages tab is for, and you know how so much of the code, this VBA code under the hood, works. And now there is a new object for Saplicity that I'm going to post on the website right after I finish this recording. Well, hey, I learned a lot making this video, and I hope you did too. Thanks so much for watching.